Okay, so a quick tutorial on the Kusari Tsunagi. This braid is really fun. This is a good one for necklaces. It's one that allows you to set beads on the outside edge without really having to count the placement of the bead as you go through the warp. As you see on this one, you can see that that dark purple line is straight so that the beads can fall in a straight line. So I've made a little template to make it easy for you to do that, and here's how it works. This one sets it in the beginning a little bit differently in that we don't have 4 sets of 2. We have one warp 8 times on this one. This is one of the few braids that I actually do like to use a weight on. I don't use weights very often, but I do use them for this one. Now, the reason there are red and black lines on this one is that frequently you'll use 2 different weights of textiles on it. And in fact, this necklace has both Eslon and rat tail in it. When you're using 2 different weights, you will set one weight on the red, which is 5, 6, 7, and 8, and you'll set the other weight on the black, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right, so the way this works is these warps have to change places. They have to be exactly where their opposite number is. And you can't do that on this disc. On a Meridai, it's simple, but on the foam disc, a little bit harder. So what I do is I bring 1 down to 2 and I park it on, oh, by the way, I have beads on just 1 and 2 on this one. I park it on this dotted line. So now I can take the 1 out of 2 and I can move it up to 1. I can do the same thing with 3 and 4. I can take 3 over to the dotted line at 4, bring 4 back to 3, take 5 up to the dotted line at 6, bring 6 back to 5, and then I'll take 7 up to the dotted line at 8, bring 8 back to 7. Anybody that's on a dotted line has to go home. So 2's got to go home, 4 has to go home, 6 has to go home, and 8 has to go home. Now, to set beads in it, this line is, we'll call it the number 1 warp as it moves. So if I drop a bead in number 1, it would always be along that line. Number 2 will be on a parallel line on the other side. It would be 90 degrees opposite this. 3 and 4 the same way. So think of your braid as having 4 faces on it. It is easiest to drop the bead on 2 just because of where the warp placement sits. So I'm going to bring 1 down to 2. Now I'm going to drop a bead in. And this braid is excellent for these top drill beads. I just have plain ordinary dagger beads that I'm using on this. Just throw a dagger bead in number 1. As soon as I work warp 3, that bead is locked into place. I don't have to worry about them anymore. Let's bring 4 over to 3, 5 over to 6, 6 back to 5, 8 up to 7, or 7 up to 8 back to 7 there. Everybody on a dotted line has to go home. Okay, again, I'm just going to work 1 with no bead. On 2, I'm going to drop a bead. Slide him into the hole. Hold him in place there until I work number 3 across, which will lock him in place. Bring 4 back. 5 goes to 6, 6 comes back to 5, 7 goes to 8, 8 comes back to 7. Anybody on a dotted line has to go home. So 1 comes to 2. I'm going to drop a bead on 2, slide him into the hole, tuck him in. Number 3 will lock him into place. Bring 4 back to 3. Take 5 over to 6. 6 back to 5. 7 up to 8. 8 back to 7. Bring everybody home. Now I'm not going to pull this out right away and show you what happened, because what I'm going to do is drop a bead on number 1 so that when I pull it out I can see. So if I drop a bead on 1, he's working his way down the string there. Okay, bead on 1. And then a bead on 2. Now 1 has been locked into place with 2. 2 gets locked into place with 3. 4 comes back to 3. 5 goes to 6. 6 comes back to 5. 7 goes to 8. 8 comes back to 7. Anybody that's on a dotted line has to go home. Let's kind of pull that point of braiding back on center. And I still have a bead on 1, so let me drop the bead on 1. I'm out of beads on 2 because I only put 3 beads on each of these strings. So let me just finish this. Again, this is, I'm using Tex 210. This would probably be a little more effective in the 400. I'm going to work just one more with no beads, and then I'm going to pull it off and show you how these beads set. This braid is effective for necklaces because it tends to want to curve as you're working it, especially if you're working it in 2 different weights of textile. So let me pull this off and show you what I've got. So when I was dropping braids on 2, you can see how these are all sitting right next to each other. Now the problem with this is the stitch that's created by the Tex 210 is not large enough to make enough room for these beads. That's why they're all kind of together. So what I might do if I were actually making a project out of this is load it dagger seed bead, so that I would have a dagger, a seed, a dagger, and a seed, and they would lay better. But you can see then when I started loading beads on the number 2, let's see if I can get this here, on the number 2, that they're coming out exactly opposite. So this is when I dropped on number 1. This is when I started dropping on number 2. Had I dropped on 3 and 4, they would have come down this face and the opposite face. So that's all there is to this. The template really does make it useful. Again, you can get it from me. You can draw it on the board if you don't want to do it. This is vinyl. It comes off. Give it a try. It's a lot of fun. Again, it's a perfect braid for necklaces.